Well, it's been a while since we've seen a Russian armored assault, so I guess they thought they'd try again. I don't know. The results here went about as expected, with one Russian commentator saying, quote, "The front is ablaze." We also have even more Wildberries factories burning in Russia, which is becoming like a daily occurrence at this point, and a deadly strike on a Ukrainian defense expo in Kyiv. Now, starting with this footage here, it was released by the Ukrainian Phoenix Regiment of the Unmanned Systems Forces. They say the attack took place in the Dobropilia direction. From the Russian side, they got a little more specific, saying it was in Mayak village. So turning to a map to give you an idea of the area we're talking about, we've got Donetsk here, Dobropilia in the middle of the screen, Pokrovsk to the south to kind of give you an idea of the area we're looking at. As we zoom in here, Mayak right here. So we're talking 5 to 7 kilometers inside of Russian-controlled territory, according to the mapping being done by Deep State Map. Belitsky here to the west is actually important because Russia, alongside this footage of an armored assault being stopped well before it reaches the front lines, Russia released footage saying they now have taken control of Belitsky. And not just taking control, but an armored unit went in there and took it. So notable for that to come out the same day. Now, let's turn to the footage. And something I want you to keep an eye on is the lack of protection for these Russian tanks. They look very similar to what we saw in the opening phases of the war, like 4+ years ago. I haven't seen tanks like this used in offensive operations in a while. I'm not entirely sure what to make of that quite yet, but the Ukrainian Armed Forces issued a statement here saying, quote, "It's been a while since we've had action like this. Russia attempted one of its largest armored breakthrough operations in recent months in the Dobropilia direction, a massed tank assault into Ukrainian positions. It ended with the wreckage burning across the fields of Donetsk. Border guards of the Phoenix unit, working alongside adjacent units, destroyed 9 tanks, 2 armored vehicles, and 3 multiple launch rocket systems, as well as several dozen Russian personnel." They said Russia has largely stopped using armor in many directions precisely because of this. The vehicles get detected and destroyed before they reach anything. In the Pokrovsk direction, Russian forces abandoned armored assaults entirely, switching to small infiltration groups on foot. At Dobropilia, they tried the old way once more. This footage shows the result. Russian armor burning in Ukrainian fields. Another Russian attack, another entry in the loss statistics. Again, not entirely sure what to make of these kind of, outdated Russian tanks being used in the assault. In this clip, we do see some of the more, I hate to use the term modern, but that's kind of what it is, right? The upgraded armor, the shed-looking vehicles that we've seen used both by Russia and Ukraine that help kind of the survivability of these tanks. They can take, instead of 2 or 3 FPV drones to disable them, it can take up to 10 sometimes or more. So we did see at least one of those, but some of these, I think they're T-72s, if I recall correctly, with just the kind of top cover grill. That's not going to do it. And you see the results of that. Ukrainian FPV drones disable the vehicles, and then they bring in their bomber drones to drop munitions overhead and finish them off. The result is as expected. Now, the Russian response here has been relatively limited. Officer at the front talked about some situations occurring at the front recently, saying, quote, "It must be acknowledged that the enemy has a clear advantage in air superiority. Drones are hovering over every road, over every supply depot. Logistics throughout the entire front are under their control, and every movement of columns becomes risky. In conclusion, the front is ablaze. We are pressing forward, we are storming, but the enemy controls the skies, and this turns every step into a trial." And I think this footage shows that perfectly, right? Russia can move tanks forward. They can move soldiers forward. They can move motorcycles and ATVs forward. But Ukraine has a pretty significant advantage of this drone wall as those troops get, 5, 10, 15 kilometers near Ukrainian positions. They're quickly swarmed, especially large vehicles like tanks. Those are high-value targets, and every Ukrainian drone unit in the area is swarming to destroy that. The results of that in this footage released by the Phoenix unit. Now, notably, Russia actually put out this footage the same day, just yesterday, saying that they had taken the Ukrainian city of Belitsky. Again, going back to the map to show you kind of the location here, Mayak, right here in the middle of the screen, according to Russian sources, this is where the attack on the armored vehicles took place. At the same time, they say just a few kilometers west, a tank unit took Belitsky. It has to be related, right? So this is kind of an interesting announcement to come out at the same time. Now, the Russian video that we'll play here shows a flag planting operation in Belitsky, and they said that the Ministry of Defense announced that the city of Belitsky had been liberated. The enemy is, of course, in denial, but our soldiers sent a video postcard from the center of the liberated city today. The soldiers of the 5th Brigade, in cooperation with the 90th Tank Division, have once again achieved victory. The involvement of the tank division suggests that the fighting for the city involved the use of tanks. It is important to note that this was an effective use of armored vehicles. Again, pretty notable, I have to say, that we've got for the first time in a long time a large-scale Russian armored assault. We've got the footage from Ukraine showing that at least a significant number of those were destroyed. The same time, Russia saying yes, and an armored assault effectively took this city. Now, we haven't seen that footage. So if that exists, that armor was used to take that city, and this isn't just some individual infiltrating in and planting the flag, from what I've seen, that has not been made public. So, of course, we'll keep an eye out for it, but pretty notable. Two claims around the use or, the effectiveness or lack of effectiveness of armored attacks coming out in the same day. Now, we're going to shift over to the long-range strikes. What you're seeing here is even more Russian Wildberries warehouses going up in flames, which has now become essentially a daily occurrence. But before getting into those details, a quick thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Rec Watches. Look, I'm not normally a guy that gets excited about watches, but then again, not very many watches are made from parts of a plane that fought in the Battle of Britain. Yeah, this one's pretty wild. So the sponsor of today's video is Rec Watches, and the story behind their X4009 series is wild. Now, this watch is built from aluminum taken off a Spitfire Mark I Alpha X4009, a real plane from the Battle of Britain that was flown by Patterson Clarence Hughes. It's Australia's most decorated pilot of the era, with 17 aerial victories, and he was shot down on September 7th, 1940. Now, the aluminum that could not be used to restore the plane, and that's an ongoing process right now, was reforged into the 6 o'clock subdial of each watch. Original patina still intact. No two look the same. And that's not a marketing line. It's just what happens when you use 80-year-old aircraft material in a watch. Now, the design here is built to World War II military pilot specs. Big numbers, bold hands, minute track. The crown is actually a Spitfire's nose, and the crown guard is the wingspan looking down from above. And the more you look into these little details, the more you see. It's incredible. Now, this is strictly limited, never to be reproduced, and part of every sale funds the restoration of X4009 itself. Now, if any of that hit you the way it hit me, go to the link in the description and use code Preston for 10% off. It's the kind of thing you either get immediately or you don't get at all. So for all of you aviation and history buffs, it's a pretty unique item. And thank you so much to Rec Watches for sponsoring today's video. I mean, it is like every day. You wake up, you check the news, you see a fire burning in Russia. It's a Wildberries factory. These things are incredibly flammable, apparently. Who would have thought? Now, Reuters put out a note talking about this, saying 8 Wildberries factories, accounting for more than 10% of the company's storage capacity, have been attacked since July 18th. 6 days, 8 Russian Wildberry factories. Russian media Rybar said, quote, "The campaign launched by Ukrainian formations pursues one simple goal, and it's not the destruction of military infrastructure or Russian armed forces logistics, but weakening the economy by pressuring small and medium-sized businesses. Along with regular attacks on refineries and oil depots, as well as the merchant fleet, pressure on Russia's economy is intensifying." And this pressure kind of comes in a few different forms. It's not just trying to make life hard for the average Russian citizen. That is, I believe, a degree of this. I mean, Reuters, turning back to their article, said Wildberries press service said more than 88,000 sellers had started receiving initial compensation for damaged goods. But that's not going to, they're not going to be made whole. Certainly not all of them. They said the company states in its terms of business that it is exempt from liability in force majeure circumstances and specifically lists drone strikes as one of those scenarios. So that's effectively Wildberries saying, like, yeah, if your stuff's destroyed with drones, there's nothing, we're not responsible for that. We're not going to reimburse you for those losses. So that is certainly going to hit a lot of Russian small and medium-sized businesses and a lot of Russian consumers that rely on Wildberry and their distribution service for their deliveries day in and day out. Another aspect of this is the further dispersion of Russian air defense. They have never had enough air defense systems across the country. It's too big of a territory. When you start grouping in the occupied territories, it's too much. Ukraine has increased their drone production and drone range at a faster rate than Russia has produced the ability to stop those. So what we're seeing every single day is more air defense systems getting hit, more Russian headquarters facilities, more ships, more Wildberries facilities getting hit. And Russia is having to make a decision, Putin having to make a decision. Do you protect the military? Do you protect the oil refineries? Do you protect the Black Sea Fleet? Do you protect now the Wildberries facilities? And you have to assume that there is going to be some added pressure from the civilians inside of Russia as they experience the shortcomings in the economy due to these strikes. So again, another avenue of pressure being applied to Putin with the hope that at some point, maybe there will be enough internal pushback to bring about some sort of negotiated settlement to end the war. If nothing else, it continues to damage the Russian economy. That economy is what's fueling the war machine. You can see how 1, 2, 3, this kind of moves in that direction. Now, pretty interesting event a few hours ago where a Russian missile strike, I think it was 2 missiles impacted a Ukrainian defense expo taking place in the Kyiv region. So the Russian Ministry of Defense confirmed this, saying that they launched a group strike with high-precision long-range weapons at the object in the suburbs of Kyiv, where a demonstration of unmanned aerial vehicles was conducted. The Kyiv Independent verified this, so we know that this happened. I think we don't know the full scope of the fallout quite yet. The Kyiv Independent said, quote, "At least 10 people have been killed and more than 100 injured after a Russian ballistic missile strike on Kyiv hit an arms exhibition." The prosecutor general added that his office opened 2 criminal investigations, including for possible violation of the laws and customs of war, as well as potential non-compliance with official duties when organizing and holding the event. The Kyiv Independent said no details about the event or location were publicly available before the attack, and the invitation was only shared among closed industry channels and emerged online afterwards. A spokesperson for the Ukrainian Council of Defense said that neither the invitation nor the registration link disclosed the venue. There's 2 aspects here that are going to be pretty significant. One, when you look at the people that would have been attending this, you're talking about senior government officials and people leading some of the Ukrainian defense innovation. All right, so when you hear 10 people killed and 100 wounded, that is coming from a very specific demographic that is helping Ukraine stay in this fight day in and day out. I have not seen names of anybody that's been killed or seriously wounded, but again, this wasn't just some random location in Kyiv or somewhere across Ukraine. This was, for lack of a better term, high-value targets for Russia. So that's significant as we find out who was killed in this attack. The other piece is it looks like, and we'll wait for more information on this, it looks like somebody may have leaked that information. Intentionally or unintentionally, the information became known that this expo was taking place, that there would be a number of VIPs in attendance. Russia took advantage of that. It looks like Ukraine is looking into that right now to find out how that happened. But either way, more information, no doubt, yet to be made available as that investigation continues. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.